Hey, aloha, Love Tribe. Welcome to Bitcoin for Peace. This is DJ Valerie B. Love, and I have someone here with me who is on a mission to help normal people and some of us abnormal ones like me learn about Bitcoin mining in a sustainable way. Welcome, Kent Halliburton, CEO and co-founder of Sazmining. What's up, brother?
Not a lot, man. Just really happy to be here. This is one I've been looking forward to since I met you in Madeira.
I know. It seems like 10,000 years ago.
It does. It does. It's I worked in rooftop solar before this, and we used to call it the solar coaster. And I feel like we need to come up with an acronym for something similar here in the Bitcoin industry, because it is it's a rock and roll, a shake and jive industry. It
Like
does not sleep. Maybe the Bit coaster, but that's
I
too
think,
much of a
what about the
ripoff.
Bit Bouncy House?
Mm, the Bit bouncer.
The Bit
That makes
Bounce.
it.
It's just like,
Yeah.
you're getting
Yeah.
knocked all over. It's fun,
Totally.
but yeah, it is definitely a ride. I mean, holy cow. Um, yeah, so, well, Kent, I'm so happy to finally get you on the show, and I want the audience to understand who you are, what's Saz Mining all about, and then, let's get going forward there. How'd you get to this place of becoming the CEO and co-founder of Saz
Oh,
Mining?
what a journey it's been. How far back should I go?
Mhm.
Um,
To the
no,
beginning.
I'll go to the end of my rooftop solar career and start from there. So I took a couple year sabbatical. I was working, had like a team of about 100. I was competing with Elon Musk's cousins and just hit burnout and had this life dream of seeing the world. So I took off for a couple of years, threw in a backpack and went all over the place. Really had some great adventures, great fun. Got the ants out of my pants, and by the time it
Mhm.
was all said and done, I'd fallen in love with a Portuguese woman and Bitcoin. And so home for me in
Yay.
2016 was Portugal. Started family, marriage, life, house, all the classic American dream stuff just in Portugal.
Yeah.
And started my entrepreneurial journey and, was doing like Bitcoin concierge services, went through, shitcoin trading, mining from home. What else did I do? Was trying to run Bitcoin ATM. So, kind of just trying to find my place really.
Mhm.
And nothing really stuck. A big part of that was just language and lack of network. But I read Jeff Booth's The Price at Tomorrow, and I suddenly realized, oh my gosh,
Love him.
this,
Where is he? I
yeah,
got him up
this,
there somewhere. I know Jeff's here.
yeah,
Oh, he's right above
in
my
the
head.
background.
Right. He's above my head,
Yeah, there it is. There
below
it is. Yeah,
below my
yeah.
belly cast of my child and Jeff Booth.
That is the book that shifted it for me, and I
Yeah.
realized, hey, this solar energy background, I need to lean into that and get into mining. So I heard Will, the founder of Saz Mining, on a solar podcast. I knew the host. The host put us in touch. One thing led to another. We raised some money, and at that point in time, the money we were raising was for some shovel ready, large Bitcoin mining projects, and we had a slight snag, which is by the time we finished raising the money, this is mid 2021, it wasn't enough to build them. So we said,
Mm.
oh, this is a problem. What are we going to do now? And so Will, the founder, had a good idea. He said, look, what Compass is doing, they're growing really fast. It seems like they've got some chinks in their armor. Like, why don't we go approach that market? And so I said, given my rooftop solar background, where I was overseeing like hundreds of systems being built across the US each month, I said, I think I've got the skill set to do that. So I took on the operations. He took on the point of the spear and relationships, visionary side of things, and we started jamming together. And now here we are today. We've built what I believe is the easiest way for the normie to mine their own Bitcoin. And the beauty of the process is that it's at a discount, as compared to the exchange price. And so, the average Joe can DCA their way into Bitcoin via a mining based experience and wind up, saving about 20 to 30% on the sats that they receive through the process.
And is it KYC?
Well, no, we have to have contact information so we can talk to our customers.
Mhm.
But that is all we need, is just to be able to talk to our customers. Because if you look at what we do, we sell a server and we service that server.
Got it.
So, we don't have a lot of regulatory oversight like an exchange might.
Okay, so that's pretty exciting. And then, so obviously we just had the halving, a couple months ago. How
Mhm.
has the landscape shifted for your business and for people who are looking to get into mining at this point?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has, right? It's gotten more competitive with the halving. So our first of all, I think it's worth describing how Saz Mining makes money in
Okay,
the
great.
in this. So when clients come to our website, they buy a mining rig the same way that you would any other like e-commerce type of product, right? And then we get it procured, we get it shipped to our data center, which is right now in Paraguay. We've got very low cost excess hydropower that are that's powering our data center there. And once it's plugged in, a client will sign up and get their service plan set up to pay for the electricity. And once that occurs, the hash rate is directed to the client, and they start to accrue rewards that get sent directly to their Bitcoin address. Now, we set it up such that we don't make money any other way than the way our clients do. And what that means is that when we sell mining rigs and we sell the electricity to power them, those are costs. And so what we do is we instruct the mining pool, and for us, that's Luxor right now, and we will add more in the future. But we instruct the mining pool to simply split the block reward when it's paid out.
Okay.
So we receive just 15%. And what's beautiful about that is it makes sure that we have the exact same set of incentives as our clients do. And that means that we're going to make the type of decisions that our clients want us to make, like, hey, how quickly can we get your rig plugged in? How do we make sure that your rig is up as long as possible? So in back to your question about what's happened after the halving, right? Like, we've had the same experience our clients have, right? So their amount of Bitcoin rewards got cut in half just as ours did. And so,
Mhm.
we've been working through that. What I see is historically that this is the hardest time to be a miner right after the halving.
Mhm.
However, historically, it has been the best time as soon as this time period is over. Right, this is when the price likes to go, and when the price goes faster than the difficulty of mining rigs increases, then there's a large profit opportunity there. And so, even though the value proposition doesn't look particularly great at the moment, our clients are still mining profitably and set up for when that opportunity occurs. So really, at its core, if you don't believe in the price cycle of Bitcoin, it probably doesn't make sense to mine. But if you do, it's one of the best opportunities and ways to acquire Bitcoin.
And then as far as, because you brought up Compass, and they obviously had some issues in the past. And like you said, obviously business is business. We want to be entrepreneurs and go
Mhm.
be competitive, and obviously try to constantly create better products and services for the market. Um, since you're just in Paraguay, um, how is it there, like as far as a single point of failure for, let's say, the government decides they don't like that you're doing this, or there's a hurricane or whatever. I don't know if you get hurricanes down there, or some kind of natural disaster that I mean, I guess in general, like you've got to put these servers somewhere physically on Earth, and
Yeah.
so. Um, it sounds like this is the best place that you guys have decided. So how do you make sure that people have got their booties covered?
Yeah, no, that's an important one. So I'm a big believer that incentives are more important than laws, because that's what people tend to follow. It's kind of like incentives are like gravity for people. So what so just to back up a sec,
Mhm.
we operate in Wisconsin and Paraguay, so we're not just in Paraguay, but we're
Okay.
full in Wisconsin. We chose Paraguay because of the incentives, and the incentives are quite unique. Basically, Paraguay and Brazil, they share a massive dam that generates about 14 gigawatts of power. It's called the Itapu Dam. And the way it was arranged between the two countries, they were to split the power that comes off the dam, so 7 gigawatts each. The problem is, and this dam was started to be built in the early 70s, World Bank, IMF type of project, right? Now, the problem is that Paraguay can only use today about 2 gigawatts of that power. And so here you've got this massive amount of excess power. And I'm talking like a Texas sized opportunity, right? For
Wow.
power. It's all clean, it's all hydro. Doesn't matter where on the grid you are, but it's excess. And so I saw that, and we were evaluating. Hey, we filled up our Wisconsin facility like the first half of last year, and we said, okay, this model's working. We want to keep growing. Where should we go? And it was right at the time that the Biden administration was looking to put a 30% tax on mining. There was some legislation going on in New York. Texas had some legislation that could go through, and we just said, this is probably a good time to consider this Paraguay option right now for our clients. So we leaned into that because the electricity price was very cheap. It's all clean, and the incentives were such that I said, look, at the end of the day, politicians need to be voted into the office, and the best way to get voted into office is to provide economic opportunity. So if we can take this excess power that they've been selling to Brazil at a loss, and we can change it from being a liability into being an asset for the GDP, well, shoot, that's going to equal votes. That's going to equal politician support. So indeed, actually, this year it came up where there was a small set of politicians that actually attempted to put a 180-day ban in place on Bitcoin mining.
Mm-hmm.
And that action beget a much bigger reaction. And now the what is the name of the fellow? It's the economic ministry, the head of the economic minister. He's come out and said, no, we want to sell all the excess power to crypto miners, which just means Bitcoin mining, right? Because nobody can say Bitcoin directly. So anyhow,
Why
that's
not?
quite
Why can't you
exciting.
say Bitcoin directly? I don't get it.
Well, I think from a political standpoint, you can't single out one technology. And so the best way they can talk about it is crypto, but they just mean Bitcoin because that's where all the electricity is going, is
And
for
so how
Bitcoin
much at
mining.
this point of that extra, I think 5 gigs, you said 5, right? Of
Yeah, 5 gigs.
like how much is like getting consumed right now by Bitcoin miners?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely certain. What I do know is that 200 to 400 megawatts of it was being illegally mined, and so in the last month or so, there's come out some clampdowns on some illegal mining, and I think it's actually worth talking about for a minute because
Yeah, yeah.
there was a lot of lost in translation on Twitter about
But they shut
what
it
illegal
down.
mining means.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody thought they were shutting down Bitcoin mining, and it's like, no, you guys, this is a good thing. What you don't realize is there are parts of this world where people will just go on and go out there and throw jumper cables on the electric lines and steal the electricity. It's quite literally theft, right?
Yeah.
And so these folks are giving a bad name to the rest of us that have contracts, that are doing everything above board and upright. And so cracking down on that actually is good because it makes our industry healthier. And so that's what's been going on, is cracking down on that. And there's about 200 to 400 megawatts of illegal mining, they estimated, in Paraguay. So my guess is we're probably pushing about a gigawatt of power consumption at this point by the Bitcoin mining industry, and the
With
government
all
is
the
starting.
Bitcoin miners down there, all the
Yeah.
companies. And so who's your competition down there
Well, I mean, that's
that you
a
know
funny
of?
thing about our so Penguin has probably got the biggest name. They're a specific Paraguayan operator. They've got a big operation. Marathon, Riot are moving in, and I know some of the other folks are too. Not don't feel comfortable disclosing, but a lot of it has been disclosed publicly by like the equivalent of a Freedom of Information Act.
Mhm.
So you can go see how much people are paying for power, etc. It's been published in the local newspapers there, but it's quite interesting to see folks moving in, and I think that we're past the pioneer phase of Paraguay at this point, and now it's starting to move into kind of the settlers that come in behind the pioneers and sort of settle the landscape. And I feel like that's where we are in the mix. But from a competition standpoint, you mentioned Compass earlier, and just to tie into that for a sec, like I think of Compass as our inspiration, but not
Yeah.
our competition, because we offer mining as a service, which is slightly different. I can go into the nuance of that, but then secondarily, what I've realized is we're competing with the exchanges, because if we do our job right with the software experience that we're building, we're going to naturally bring people away from exchange-based acquisition and instead choose to acquire their Bitcoin the native way, the way that Satoshi designed the network, which is through mining. And to date, nobody's really focused on creating that user experience. And it's not easy. And I get why a lot of people have sort of ran away from it, to make it easy and intuitive, on par with like an Uber type of experience for ride sharing. But that's our aim.
And how, because I love this obviously concept of not going and buying off the exchanges, and how can we get
Mhm.
our own sats, and how can we help support, strengthening the network this way. What is there financing available for people? Like, is that a whole, I mean, that seems like a whole industry in and of itself, that people could go finance their rigs.
So my answer to that is you can, and I do think some of our clients are doing that. So you can go to a hodl hodl, one of these places, post your Bitcoin as collateral, get USDT. We accept that as payment, and you can grab a mining rig from us and start accruing Bitcoin, right? But we have not integrated that directly into our platform, and we've got some ongoing conversations, and I hope to. Not with hodl hodl. I don't want to create any rumors. But what I think would be really nice is if we could offer financing, because the upfront ticket price to buy a mining rig, because clients that own the mining rig, we just have possession of it, so they've got the serial numbers all the way through our system, from the mining pool all the way through to our platform. But we can't sell less than a mining rig, right? And so the ticket price of getting started with us is the cost of a mining rig, which is between $2,500 and $5,500, right? And so that's out of reach for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so clearly there's an opportunity there for financing to bring that upfront cost down.
Yeah, it seems like it would be beneficial for, to have that for all of us, because it's like, oh, I want to get 10 rigs, but I don't have 50 grand sitting in my bank, um,
Yeah.
but I can, I got some kidneys lying around here.
Yeah, let me just go to the black market there and sell one of these puppies. I don't need to.
And as far, so okay, so that's obviously your capex, your first expense that you're going to have is, getting the
Mhm.
rigs. So electricity obviously is your variable. How do you guys, is everybody there getting the same price for this electricity? Are you all negotiating differently, because maybe you're going to say, we're going to commit to buying X amount of this excess hydroelectric power, because this is what our company predict we're going to use, versus this company's like, we're going to buy this much, so give us a discount. Is that how electricity buying works?
Well, not quite. We've got arranged a fixed price for power for several years. And so we just pass that through a cost to our clients. We do add a very, very small amount to cover maintenance so that we don't have to bill for repairs with the mining rigs.
Cool.
But that's it. And we just figured, gosh, going through the billing collection process for needing to repair a fan or a power supply goes out, it's not worth the hassle. Let's just assume an average cost across the mine and bake that in. So our costs actually are kind of like a warranty as well, because we're going to cover all the repairs for your mining rig throughout the
And then
life
what's
of
the
the
energy cost per
device.
kilowatt hour?
4.7 cents. And
Ooh, that's pretty
so
good, and it's
so
green.
that yes, and it's hydro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to think of hydro as the equivalent of the firemen. Nobody hates the firemen, but in the same way, from an energy source, hydro, nobody hates hydro.
I know, it seems like I'm sure you've seen this image of the floating solar panels that just completely got annihilated in some thing, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, that's not good." And obviously a solar guy, like, what's your experience moving from solar to hydro, as far as, like, obviously there's two totally different ways of, like, here's this whole chunk of, these panels, versus here's this hydroelectric dam that we're dealing with. Like, is this the better way to get green energy for people, and sustainable ways to mine?
Well, my answer is pretty nuanced on this. So the through line in my career is not obvious, but it's actually helping people be sovereign.
Mhm.
So with rooftop solar, and this is specific, I use rooftop solar specifically because the panels we were selling were almost exclusively going on people's roofs, or maybe a ground mount at their home. But it was helping homeowners become sovereign because they were able to generate their own electricity, spin their
Mhm.
meters backwards, and that was always a very empowering moment to help homeowners turn on their solar systems. And I find
Mhm.
that there's a similar empowering moment that occurs with our clients when they've received their first sats in their wallet. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, you mean this came directly from the network and I did this? It's kind of a little
Did this.
a little dance that the clients go to when they realize, like, hey, this is mine, and so that through line of empowerment, I think, really motivates me, and I find exciting because there's, like, what I believe that we're building actually is the most potent social layer, or portion of the social layer of the Bitcoin network, because it's folks that have skin in the game, they
Mhm.
understand Bitcoin, and they have a sense of ownership in Bitcoin itself, the network, through the ownership of their mining rigs. And it's hard to understate how important that is. If you look at the group that has done the most in the US for protecting the Bitcoin network, and there's a strong argument to be made that it is the Bitcoin miners. And it's because of all the capital they've invested.
Yeah.
There's some of the biggest contributors to the lobby groups that are educating our legislators and keeping the legislators from, throwing a gutter ball here on us with how they regulate the Bitcoin industry. So yeah, the more folks that we can get mining, I think the healthier the network will be.
And what has been an obstacle for, in your experience, to people understanding, especially, legislators and, people out there who don't really get why Bitcoin is going to help create, these jobs and this economic opportunity. And to me, obviously, my whole thesis is Bitcoin is a tool for peace. If we don't have peaceful money, you can't have a peaceful world. You're going to have all of these things with the family breakdown, with mental health breakdown, with your society, with wars, with the endless fiat printing of bombs, etc. And so, um, what have you come across as like the biggest thing where people are just like, no, 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 and then they finally get it, that why the mining is so
Oh,
important.
with mining, oh yeah, I thought you were asking me what my strategy is for orange pilling people, because I've still not figured that out. I picked up my first Bitcoin in 2015. It's just, it seems like I do have a theory on that. I'll come back to it, but no,
Right.
the I think as far as getting to people about mining, it's not easy. Brandon Quittem is an advisor for SAS Mining, and he's got a quote that I absolutely love, which is, Bitcoin mining takes everything you're wrong about. I'm saying it horribly, but basically everything you know about both money and energy that you didn't know, like, you have to then know, right? So it's kind of complex, and it's outside of people's purview. And I just like to explain it as simply as possible: is you're taking electricity and you're converting it into Bitcoin at a regulated rate. Right. And you don't need to know more than that. But I think the concept of being able to create Bitcoin out of this mining experience, it does sort of create a bit of a bork in people's heads that cause them to just stop and not look any further. And we hope to change that over time. But I do think that it seems mystical to people. And frankly, I think it's fascinating, and it is kind of mystical, but I understand it, and so it doesn't seem like this. It's, what do they say about something magic, that, like, once science understands it, it's not really magic at all. Um,
Yeah.
and I think Bitcoin mining fits in that same bucket.
I know, it's like I'm just looking at the screen, right? I'm like, "Is Kent behind the screen? Like, where is he? No, and how is he here?" But at first you think it's like, if you've never seen experienced, you're like, "It is. It's like this magic thing." It's like, no, it's electricity and signals and light and all these things. So it's 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 important that we get educated. I know I was at a dinner last night, and it's always, when you were saying about what's your orange pill strategy, and we can chat about that. It's like, it depends. It always depends. Who's your audience? Who are you talking to? What are their pain points? Any kind of marketing that you would do, you think, like, what's the person's pain points? What do they understand? What are they missing? How do you get them over the bridge, A to B, et cetera? And so there's no one conversation that is going to be the right, there's no cookie cutter size,
Mhm.
orange pill conversation. Like, some people are so excited about electrifying villages so that they can, have a, a light bulb, to do surgery with, right? And other people are like, oh, I care about human rights, or other people are like, I care about separating money from state. Like, you have to know who you're talking to before you can really have intelligent conversations, I think. So I think it depends.
Yeah, yeah, no, and at the core, I think the longer you're in Bitcoin, the more you stare at it. I think the deeper the truths are that you realize, right? Like, and the more you
Yeah,
stare at it, the more it like stares back at you and
I know.
seems to change you. It's a weird process that one goes through. But the what I've kind of come to at this particular point is that we're actually like the beatniks or the hippies, and we're on this like civil rights journey because
Yeah,
the freedom to transact underlies all our other freedoms,
yeah,
right? And if we don't protect that, then ultimately we're going to lose other freedoms along the way. And so, I think of Bitcoiners as actually the new civil rights movement
totally.
at its core. And I wish we would lean more into that as a community and talk about it, because I think the civil rights angle resonates a lot better with folks than than anything else. At least that's been my experience, is like the human rights side of things,
Yeah.
like all the good things that Bitcoin can do. When people see that, they tend to say, oh, okay, the rational, like, which I'm prone to do, tell people the history of money and how this is better money. Like, it sort of makes people glass over and just turn sideways. But when I talk about what Eric is doing with gridless out in Kenya, like, oh
Yes.
wow, that's super rad. Like, let me get involved with that, right? So I don't, like you said, there's no one strategy that fits all people. But I will say it's really interesting living in a place like Peru. So I think I was mentioning to you, I live in the high Amazon here, which is an unusual place. I'm talking to you over Starlink. Technology
So
just
cool.
makes life possible. And I moved here because of my wife's work, right? This wasn't for Sazmining, but it's really interesting to see how people here understand Bitcoin from like a monetary standpoint much easier, but the technology side is kind of more confusing, right? Like the private key management, like, is difficult, versus, like, I feel like in the US perspective, like, understanding the monetary side is the more challenging bit, versus the technology side. Hey, no problem, like, I can write down 12 words, so it's a really interesting how there's like different dynamics in different places, not just like the process of orange pilling, but also how to actually use Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, and I think here, obviously in the States, it's like we're because of dollar hegemony everywhere, it's like we're conditioned to trust the dollar, trust the central bankers, trust the Fed, trust all the nonsense. And just like we're conditioned, I say we, I don't include myself anymore after my skin has turned orange. Um, but from the medical profession, right? A lot of these folks they entrust their health to, this the Western medical doctors, which it's just like, oh my God, question everything and learn about how your operating system works, And so a lot of us, because we're so tired and exhausted, and because the fiat system's a shit show, we don't have time to go investigate these things. And so you're just exhausted and you're like, well, I guess this is okay because these people say so, because they have more power or more letters next to their name, or they have more money. So I have to trust them. And then I'll just be exhausted and go back to my three jobs, And so it's such a mess. Right. And so I think we're so lucky to have gotten into this rabbit hole, because it does open up all these other perspectives and all these other areas of life of like, well, what else is bullshit out there that we've been told to believe so that we comply. I love being in this community. I feel like it's the biggest blessing for sure. Next to my kids, it's the biggest blessing in my life for sure. My loved ones. And it's amazing. So let's talk about loved ones, Kent. Let's talk
Yeah.
about raising daughters on with Bitcoin values. Let's hear this. I loved that you put that in your your messages to me. So
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to go back to the sovereignty side of things. So
Okay.
I did grow up on a farm, and so kind of just having hands in the dirt as a kid and having to problem solve and do these things. It was just always, take maximum accountability
Mhm.
for your actions. Just like when you're more connected to reality, like your actions, in the direct feedback you get, like okay, you got to be accountable. There's nobody else in between you and reality, right? And
Yeah.
so farming was a bit that way. And then also you realize the element of chaos with the weather and how you can't control everything, but
Mhm.
you do your best to manage. And so I think that that both led me to realize like most people did not grow up on a farm and didn't have that opportunity to get that sense of harmonizing with the planet and reality. And so my sense is that with Bitcoin, we can get closer to that. I believe that fiat has untethered us from reality because it
Yeah.
doesn't obey the laws of physics. And I think we see that as society unmoored right now. And so living here in the Amazon, living in a place where people are living simpler, less connected digitally, and more connected to just the elements around them. Yes, it's not as well off. A lot of folks aren't here, but I think that there's lessons to be learned by living a simpler life, and so that's part of it. Is trying to create and instill like levels of accountability
Yeah.
in children. So like I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and up until recently she would pilfer a few soles. I live here in Peru, off my desk, and the currency is called soles. And she'd take the coins. She liked to keep them and stack them in her piggy bank. And okay, that's fine. And then all of a sudden she tore the piggy bank open. I realized how many soles are there, and she wanted to go buy a toy at the market. Okay, great. You can buy a toy on us once, but next time, like, how are you going to earn this money? you know so making sure that she understands where the money has to be worked for, and can't just be given away freely or you don't value it. And so funny part is I was like, hey Naya, you took all this, right? And she's like, oh, I don't want to steal this money. So she put it all back on my desk. So now I've got a big stack of soles on my desk, and she wants to know how she can earn it, right? So that was a proud
Oh,
proud
I
papa
I know,
moment.
I was say, "Wow, I'm almost gonna cry here,
Mm.
Kent."
Yeah, yeah, that was a proud papa moment. I was like, oh, she gets it. She gets it. You don't just take. So yeah, I think those are the sorts of value, though. Getting into, hey, you make yourself accountable, and she is. I mean, I got lucky through the course of the life that we lead. She was born in Portugal, and I've got another daughter that's much younger, still kind of baby mode, right? So hard to see how she's developing. But my 6-year-old got lucky to grow up with two different languages in the house, Portuguese and English, and now being here, Spanish. And so she is a very confident and independent little critter running around just talking to everybody in whatever language they speak,
Oh, that's
which
awesome.
is which is yeah, which is pretty fun to see. So yeah, that instilling that accountability, I think, leads to confidence, internal confidence, and a sense of purpose out in the world. So yeah, these are some of the ways, but I'd love to hear how you are doing the same with yours.
It's one of the gifts of having young children like you is you don't have to unteach them anything.
That's
You
true.
don't have to deprogram them. Same thing with all of us adults. Like, the longer we have been here on Earth and we've been calcified in our thinking, it takes a lot to undo that. Especially, I was talking with James Lavish, and he was talking about his old hedge fund dudes and Wall Street, whatever. And it's just like so difficult to get this concept around their head, especially when the old system is what's paying the bills. And luxuriously for these guys. So it's like to sit and try to
Hmm.
go, nope, this is the way. It's really, really tough. So I think the further along you are on the journey, it's more difficult. And so my children are further along on their journey because they're teenagers. Like, my daughter's going to college in a month and a half, and
Oh no!
but she's
Oh
not going too
no!
far, so that's good. She's staying here in Boulder,
Oh cool.
and my son's going to graduate in another couple of years, so he's starting to get into Bitcoin, which is super, and he's like really excited about it, and not as excited as I am because I'm crazy, but at least he's not pushing back, and So he got Bitcoin for his birthday and he's been investing. So this is cool. But my daughter's just like, I don't care. Da, 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 da. So I don't push, because the more I push, the more she goes like this. And so again, know your audience.
Hmm.
But I want to ask you this. Are you familiar with the Lightning Piggy project?
Oh, you know what? I think I read something from some of your work, but I have not talked to anybody about it. Just read a tweet here or there about it. So please.
Yeah, so well, it's so cool because Richard and the crew over there, they were actually in Madeira at the kids zone area, so they had a
Mm.
little lightning piggy thing set up. I got to meet him in El Salvador a couple years ago, and they were starting the project. I was like, "Oh, this is great! We need lightning piggy." And so it was like, the 3D printed pig, and then there would be the display that would show how many sats were in a child's wallet, and then, yay, look at this! So that's their piggy bank. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
so previous, my ex-husband was, he still runs a fund. We started together, but he was always way more, adept at finance than I was, even though I worked at Deloitte and I have an accounting background. I'm just because you can doesn't mean you should. Uh,
Fair enough.
but I still have that mind. I'm always thinking of like how to tinker and build products and stuff. And so I was like 20 years ago, one of my nephews went to his, mom at my sister-in-law, and he was like, "Can I have the credit card to go buy some video game points?" And I was just like, "Why are you giving him your debit card? Like, what if he goes and, buys a jet or something, whatever." He was just like, "Well, I'll know later." And it was just something that I was like, well, isn't there a better way for us to like have kids learn about, financial literacy? And
Mhm.
knowing what we know, that most people don't have great financial literacy, adults included. I was like, well, what if we created some kind of a financial literacy education model, but then also tied it to, well, this was debit cards at the time, and this is going into Lightning Piggy. So there's actually a thread here, I promise. But
I'll believe you.
I was like, well, what if we did something where you had like this wallet, and any money that comes in, you will have like a quarterly planning session with your family, and then you will decide what goes in these 5 buckets. I call them buckets. And so it's the 5 disc model. It's donate, invest, spend, college, and save. And so college obviously now is, God knows what's going on there, but just we'll call it education. But so let's say whatever. So you get $100 that goes in for your, allowance or Christmas or whatever, and you can say, okay, I want to put 5% in donate, or 10% in donate. I want to invest 30%. I want to save for a bicycle long term. I'm going to put, 10% in my education fund. And then I want to have, 10% in my ice cream, short term spending thing. It's kind of like what you do typical financial planning, but for kids. And then, okay, so every time somebody gets, grandma sends some money for the holidays or whatever, it's all going to hit that. And then it does the splits, right? Automatically. And then instead of just piggy lightning wallet seeing one wallet, you see 5, and so you'll see what's going
Mm.
on, kind of like you would do with an EQ, like an equalizer for, music. And like, okay, we're up here at our goal. Our goal is to get to this many sats, da, 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 da. And then if the kid is like, oh, I think I want to go buy some ice cream, I'm going to go spend some money out of this wallet. But then they realize they're this close to getting the goal for their bicycle. And they visually
Mm.
can see, like, I'm almost there. Maybe I'm going to transfer my short-term account and put it over here into my my long-term savings or whatever, or invest or donate. And then parents could get a trigger that says, hey, Johnny, decided that to do the right thing. Do you want to match what he just did or double?
Oh.
You know what I mean? And so there's all sorts.
Oh,
Right?
gamify this
I
thing.
know, right? Exactly. So gamify it, make it fun, make it interactive with your family, because, so many people in the past, it's like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about money, don't talk about politics. And I'm like, this is why they're all, can cause problems. So I'm like, let's talk about money in an intelligent way together as a family. So I've been talking with Richard for a while, and I'm like, let's see if we can build this interface. And because now you can do splits easily with Ellen Bits. And so, yeah, so that's like a fun thing to do. And you can do it all ages. And once the kids outgrow the pig, then they're like, oh, I like Taylor Swift. So 3D print a Taylor Swift face and give her all the things. But it's like you give that autonomy and that engagement and that touch and feel, like, you were talking about with doing the mining. and we can do
Yeah.
stuff like that with your kids. And then you get to engage with what are their dreams? Oh, they want to go save the llamas. Okay, cool. Maybe we'll go on a llama family vacation or something. Like it opens up so many doors for connection, with your family.
Hmm.
So I think it could be an interesting project. I'm going to pitch it to Wolf, the Wolf Accelerator, and see if they want to help build it out.
Heck yeah, I'd love
Uh,
to see it built out.
Me
That'd be
too.
fun. I think I would love to use that with my daughter,
Right?
and I just think the one caveat would be that the biggest percentage would go to ice cream right now. So
I mean,
just
right now,
you know,
exactly. And that's the thing. She's not in there worrying about the llamas just yet or whatever, or
no,
her PhD.
yeah.
She's like, I really need those sprinkles, Dad.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, no. Ice cream is the biggest thing. When you live in a hot environment like this, it's critical every
Do you
time
have
the store
coconut ice
like.
cream?
Yes, we do have
Coconut
coconut
ice
ice
cream.
cream. That is
Oh,
that is a favorite.
it's so good. I know we used to live in
Mhm.
Hawaii and they had coconut glens, and you would drive out there and he had all the just giant coconut farm, and you would just get the best coconut ice cream ever. It was so good. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. There are advantages. There are disadvantages too to living in the Amazon. Everything is a bit bigger here, including the insects. So you
oh,
kind of have to learn how to adapt to that.
what's it been
Um,
like? I mean, so and you've been there for how long?
Geez, I've been here. So we officially moved the beginning of last year, but we did a trial year
Okay.
before that just to see if this was something we wanted to do. And so, yeah, I guess we're closing in on 3 years at this point in total. Um, it's been an adaptation. The biggest part has been just getting a home for ourselves built because most folks do a very simple building style here, and that is not
Mhm.
very comfortable as a Westerner. And so, finding folks getting a house built that's been the biggest challenge. But now we're in. That's beautiful, helpful, and yeah, you just adapt. After a long enough period of time, my Spanish has gotten much better, so that's helpful too. And I think just the creativity that comes with learning another language has been really helpful. You have to. What I've realized is when you deal with multiple languages, you don't always have a direct translation for the way that you want to say something, and so you've got to get creative with the words you do know to get the same idea across. And I think
Mm.
that causes a little bit of flexibility in the way you think in general, and can just lead to different neural pathways. That's
Yeah.
what I noticed. Like you can think a little bit more dexterously on your toes.
I like it. I know that's one regret I have is not learning a second language from a young age, and I feel like my kids know some Spanish, they've had to take Spanish for years and years, but uh, I think, same with music. It touches these different parts of your brain and these neural pathways. And then that applies in other areas when you do have to problem solve and think and get creative,
Yeah.
and so I think that's super cool. What's the biggest, craziest bug, insect, creature, critter, snake thing
Hmm.
that you've seen that you're like, "Oh god."
I think so. Tarantulas, we've seen quite a few of those, and
Ah,
and
no
and,
way.
and yeah, and so those are common, and when they come in your bedroom at night, that's particularly problematic. But I actually think you realize that they're actually pretty peaceful, docile critters after a little while. Like
How
that's
do
the
you get them
weird thing
out?
is like you broom. You
Just a
just you
broom.
just get them. They'll just grab on the end of a broom and then you knock on the
Okay.
door. So it's not you're not having to kill them. But
Yeah.
there's some spiders that are big that we do wind up just okay. Sorry, bud, you came in the wrong house. Like
Yeah. You
you're
do the
out.
little ceremony and you're like, "Okay, this is your zone and this is our zone, and yeah, don't cross the zone."
Yeah, but we do have like bullet ants here, which if you don't know what the bullet ant is,
Mm-mm.
it's an ant. It's about this big and it's got a venomous tail on it, and it's
Oh,
supposed to be the most painful insect sting. They're not particularly aggressive. You see them crawling around the ground sometime, but apparently if you do get stung by them, it feels like a bullet, and so that's what people say. The pain lasts for 12 to 24 hours, and even locals will go to the hospital for pain relief.
wow.
So that's an intense one. And then so thankfully, 3 years I've not been stung by one of those. But there is, you've got the common cockroach, but then there's like these jungle cockroaches that I'm not kidding you, are like this big, and they don't really come indoors much, but you'll see them like crawling around the leaf litter, and every once in a while one will get indoors. But it is something else to see, a cockroach the size of a small puppy crawling around. You're just like, oh
God.
god. Yeah, so that's the downside of living in Amazon. You got to get used to big critters. But the weird thing is, because they're big enough, it's almost like you can see their personalities, which sounds like having like stick bugs like this big, like going walking around. You're like,
Do,
oh,
do, 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 do,
yeah,
do, do, do. Like
exactly.
got the
Like you
song
just
playing in your head when you're watching them
exactly.
move.
Yeah, you just kind of realize, oh, okay, like cicadas, like they're all over the place, and you just realize those suckers are dumb as rocks and just keep bouncing off the same wall over and over again. Can't see straight, and anyway, so it's funny to interact with the wildlife.
I bet. How does your daughter, and the younger one may not have as much interaction. Does she appreciate seeing these things?
Oh yeah, I mean, she doesn't really. So we started coming here at about the age of 3, and for her, it's just normal. Like, my mother's in town at the moment, so we went on a nice jungle hike the other day, and my daughter just rips off her sandals, throws them off to the side, and just goes running through the jungle like it's nothing. And I'm just
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, you are growing up a different way,
That's the
little
best
girl.
way. I know. When we lived in Maui, my kids were 3 and 5 when we moved there. We got to live there for 4 years, I think, a little over.
Mhm.
Not long enough, of course, but just having that young age where it's just like you spend most of your time outside. You're not afraid of all the little things that are out there. We didn't have as many big creatures as you guys did. That's one bonus about that island, or any of the Hawaiian Islands, in fact. But uh,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a blessing, to get to be there
Mhm.
with your family and feel like you're back. It's sort of like now instead of your farm, you've got this jungle that is, in the same, similar, but obviously different. Um, so okay, so let's talk. What are the plans? What do we got? What do we got going? Is Saz Mining doing anything in the future that we should all know about? Are you going to any events? Are you going to go to the Nashville? Are you going to Pacific Bitcoin? What you got going on?
All of the above.
Yay!
Yeah. So
Nice.
I'll be at Mining Disrupt next week,
Cool.
Nashville the month after that. Fairly certain, although I haven't committed to it yet, fairly certain I'll be at Pacific Bitcoin as well.
Cool.
Those are the events on the horizon for me personally, and representing Saz Mining, of course. That's where I'm going. Well, I mean, I do love hanging out with Bitcoiners, so that's actually the real motivating factor, right? And how I
Family
even got
reunion.
into this role. Yeah, family reunion, exactly. Yeah, you gotta go sing with the choir to come back rejuvenated, right?
Yeah.
So that's on the horizon. As far as Saz Mining, I think we are going through an interesting year where, as an early stage startup, especially, it's dependent on software. So that's really what we've done differently, is we've come to this marketplace and say, look, if we're going to deal with hundreds of customers, we've got to build a software solution to manage all the invoicing and the billing, the payment rails, with integrating with credit cards, with Bitcoin, with USDT, like, because people want to pay by a variety of different mechanisms, being
Hmm.
able to monitor and fairly track energy consumption, being able to display it all in a way that helps somebody see it real easily. What we built through, like, our MVP process was like January of last year, and we just kept building as we realized what clients needed and were asking. And we got to a certain point at the beginning of this year where we realized our software was basically put together with bubblegum and baling wire at that point. We said, okay, we got to take a step back. Let's go take what we've learned, digest it, go rebuild from the ground up. So we've got a scalable foundation. So we're going through that process at the moment. So our feature set has not been as great as we were able to deliver last year, but that process should be over by mid-July. And at that point, we're going to be able to start running a lot more quickly. And there's a lot that we want to add on and offer to our clients to make it an even better experience, such as, having like clear notifications through the system. Hey, your mining rig is down right now because we've got a bit of curtailment, just so people don't have to ask. If we do our jobs right, clients aren't going to need to contact us, is what I've realized, because all the information will be at their fingertips. And of course, we love to hear from our clients. I'm not saying we don't want to be contacted, but it's quite difficult to manage everybody's individual mining rig in such a way that all the information is transparent. And we're doing what nobody has ever tried to do before as well. So there's not really like a roadmap for what we're building, except for to just listen to the market and take that feedback in and try to digest it and turn it back into very, very useful design. So it's a fun challenge, and one that my entire team is motivated by. But yeah, so that's the future for Saz mining,
Love
and
it.
financing, I think, is quite high on the priority list, as well as integrating some other mining pools.
That's what I was going to ask you
With
about,
that,
other mining
yeah.
pools, like the different, I keep hearing about ocean mining and all. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm not a miner yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk to you about that. We gotta change that.
Hey, I know a guy.
That's
No, I
right.
know. I'm like, I'm excited. I want to start. I think just with anything, get your first couple sats under your belt and start playing. Right, get your first miner and start getting excited. You don't have to go buy 1,000 miners. Just get one. Right.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
just
That's right. That's
fun.
that's what I,
It's
that's
just
my argument
fun.
right now, is just get a mining rig, diversify how you're acquiring Bitcoin, right? So I'm not saying to diversify your investments. I'm just saying diversify how you acquire them, because there's
Yeah.
different counterparty risks. And by the way, you get a better bang for your buck with this, because if you're mining at a discount to the exchange price, well, your dollar goes further, right?
Yeah.
You get more sats for your dollar. So it's worth at least dipping a toe in the water.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's fun. I know I had somebody come over. Tyler is doing a lot of heating reuse. And I know you
Mhm.
said you kind of delved into that part too. And obviously, we can go get the plug and play heaters. Obviously, Boulder, you need heat 8 months out of the
Of
year,
course.
9 months out of the year. And so we're talking, I live up in the mountains. And so he's just like, oh, propane's really expensive and you can use electricity instead and do all this. So it's just, I'm like, okay, maybe I can do a little here, a little of the, it's just like all these different interesting ways, like you said, diversify your stacking methodology.
That's right.
I
That's
love
right.
it. It's so cool. Well, I love this conversation and you're awesome. I'm so glad we finally got to connect and talk a little bit about what you're up to. Can we come visit? Like if we wanted to go do a site visit and check stuff out, is that a possibility?
Oh, I would love to say yes to that question, but the truth is no. The In Paraguay, where we're mining, discretion is the better part of valor. So we've actually got a 10-foot high fence that goes clear around the entire property, all brick, and then electric fence on top of that, a guard
Got
with
it.
security cameras. So it's just not safe or wise to let it open to the public where we're mining. It's a lot of valuable equipment, and so
Got
yeah,
it. That
in
makes
very
sense.
select cases we
Yeah.
do, but for the most part, the blanket answer is no. I'm sorry, but I'll send you pictures. I'm happy to.
Cool. It'll be like Adopt a Minor in the old days. Remember, you're probably too young for this, but remember Sally Struthers when you would like adopt the kids? They were
Yeah,
always like,
I do
yeah,
actually.
then you would get the pen pal notes and stuff. So it's kind of like that.
hmm Yep.
Um, but yeah, that's so cool. But so, okay, any last things you want to tell everybody? I know everybody needs to go follow you on Twitter at K Halliburton, and I'm going to have all this
hmm
stuff in the show notes, and I've got your Nostr address and everything that'll be in the show notes, so people can check that out. Um, any words of wisdom or final thoughts for you know normies who want to dip their toe in the water?
Oh gosh, just to tell everybody, come on in. The water's warm and fine. Like it's not as scary. I think that's the biggest issue that our industry has faced, is that there's been a lack of trust
Yeah,
in the vendors serving this sector, and we've certainly faced that. And I think that we are overcoming that as a company. But it is the thing I tell my team over and over again, which is just, hey guys, this is a reputation game above and all else, because at the end
mm,
of the day, our customers have to trust us to have possession of their equipment. There's no other way to do this than to build a high trust reputation in our industry. And so, it's just one customer at a time working to do that. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've been called a scam, but we're still here and we're still growing, and clients are having a good experience. Check our Trustpilot reviews, and my DMs are open. So come find me on Twitter, and I'll be happy to chat with you.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so, so much for taking time out of your day from your family and working to be here with us at Bitcoin for Peace. And yeah, everybody, thanks again for tuning in, and make sure that you follow Kent. And until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And thanks again, Kent, for taking time to be with us. All
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.
right.
This has
Peace,
been
love, and
great.
aloha.